Snerdley, if you were running for the Republican nomination this year, wouldn't you think you had a chance? I mean, everybody acknowledges this is one of the weakest fields Republican. It is kind of strange. Here we've got the single greatest opportunity we've ever had to contrast ourselves with that which we oppose. And we got one of the weakest fields. Everybody knows this.
We have a moral obligation to rob our children and grandchildren's future and leave them beholden to countries around the world who buy our debt. And most importantly, need for more spending, more taxing, and more borrowing.
If you want an abortion, you go to Planned Parenthood, and that's well over 90% of what Planned Parenthood does.
Over 90%. That is unbelievable. Planned Parenthood should not get a dime of federal money. Besides, when this 87% discrepancy was pointed out, Kyle's office immediately released the following statement to CNN.
And you know what? I just want to give it to you verbatim here. It says his remark was not intended to be a factual statement.
In that it is not true. Because only 3% of what Planned Parenthood does is abortions. Kyle just rounded up to the nearest 90.
You can't just do that. I'm a patriot. My favorite beer even says so. And you're just a goddamn filthy fucking alien.
Does ExxonMobil really need tax breaks?
They should be treated equally as any other domestic company.
But they have these tax credits. I mean, you said it yourself, tax credits that go back to the early days of the oil and gas industry. I mean, why? I mean, do they need it?
Well, when they were put in place, I mean, do you want a domestic manufacturing capability? Do you want a domestic financial capability? Do you want whatever it is?
But ExxonMobil's not going to go out of business.
We want everything made in China. You want the Saudi Royal Oil Company dictating, energy. I mean, I don't know. I think it's good to have a Made in America energy program and Made in America energy companies.
But wait a minute, ExxonMobil's not going to go out of business if we do away with the tax credits. I mean, we can agree with that, right?
Well, over time, if you put so many disincentives against any U.S. manufacturing or production company or oil and gas exploration company, they'll go out of business. The people that help
You really think that doing away with those tax credits would cause them to go out of business?
Not at $105 a barrel, no, but...
Do you find it's hard to defend these tax credits at a time when Americans are paying what they're paying at the pump?
I've just been doing it for the last 10 minutes.
And you have no problem defending these tax credits?
Not as long as you want. Not as long as you want. Not so long as you believe in the free market capitalistic system and you think that they should be headquartered in the United States. If you don't want that, then go after domestic oil and gas companies. But if you do want it, then we should treat them equally. Well, you have a conclusion that you want me to agree with, and I'm not going to agree with it. And you can ask me the same question 50 different ways, and I'm going to give you the same basic answer. And you know that, and I know that.
You know that Joe Barton's bought by the oil companies. You know that, and I know that, and he'll say it 100 times over. First of all, he mentioned free market. How is it free market to give giant subsidies to oil companies? How is that in any way the free market? It's not. And his main claim here is at least they're headquartered in America. You know how much ExxonMobil paid in 2009 in federal taxes to the United States government? $0. That doesn't mean they didn't pay any taxes. They paid billions in taxes to other governments because other governments are not suckers like us, where they get to buy our politicians. So they paid royalty rights to other governments, and they paid taxes to other governments, but not to us. Why? Because they have people like Joe Barton who work for them in Congress and say, as long as they're headquartered here, we're going to give them everything. And the headquartered thing here is obviously just an excuse to just give the money away to them. Our government is broke. It's broke. It's not broken the way the Republicans say. It's broke as in it's broken. And somebody got to fix it. And it certainly ain't going to be Joe Barton, and it's certainly not going to be the Republican Party, which loves this system of organized corruption.
That Chris Christie has said definitively that he will not run. George Will began his Sunday column this way. If pessimism is not creeping on little cat's feet into Republicans thinking about their 2012 presidential prospects, that is another reason for pessimism. This is because it indicates they do not understand that sensible Americans who pay scant attention to presidential politics at this point in the electoral cycle must nevertheless be detecting vibrations of weirdness emanating from people associated with the party. George Will was so troubled by Mike Huckabee's inanities last week, specifically his lying about Barack Obama growing up in Kenya, that he rewrote the front-runner list for the Republican nomination. According to Will, the only plausible Republican candidates are Indiana Governor Mitch Daniels, Mississippi Governor Haley Barbour, former Utah Governor and departing ambassador to China Jon Huntsman, former Massachusetts Governor Romney, and former Minnesota Governor Tim Pawlenty.
If the Beltway media could stop making out with Paul Ryan for long enough to look at what's actually in his budget proposal, they might notice that some of the important numbers in it appear to be made up. This is the same magic that Paul Ryan is using in his Republican budget this year. It's the Heritage Foundation that told him that massively cutting tax revenue would raise tax revenue. Believe. Mr. Ryan also predicts that within 4 years, the housing market will be exactly where it was at the height of the housing bubble in 2006. Why? Dunno. Believe. He also wants you to believe that his plan to dismantle Medicare is actually a Democratic idea and therefore can't be extreme. He calls the killing Medicare part of his proposal the Ryan Rivlin plan, after Alice Rivlin, who worked in the Clinton administration. He wants you to think of her, a Democrat and a lady, when you think about his plan to kill Medicare.
This path to prosperity builds upon those Rivlin-Ryan plans that we put in here.
The Rivlin-Ryan. How does Alice Rivlin feel about Paul Ryan putting her name on this? Headline, Alice Rivlin. I don't back the Ryan Rivlin plan. Ms. Rivlin telling Politico, quote, we talked fairly recently and I said, you know, I can't support the version that you have in the budget. The Congressional Budget Office, which is nonpartisan, which tends to produce actual numbers, they analyzed Paul Ryan's budget today. They found that it will actually make the national debt go up over the next 10 years. And by killing Medicare, the elderly in this country would be paying a much larger percentage of their income for health care. Dean Baker saying today that it would be a majority of their income.
For your information, our president is an alien.
You gotta be shitting me!
That's what my great uncle taught me. True story. So the fact is, you're probably incorrect. Now, I'm not waffling here. I'm distracting. Trust me. I know I've never had a real job, but I still understand the economy a darn sight better than you do because of my deep, mellifluous voice. Say, would you like a photograph of me in a swimsuit? Anyway, from now on, America is all about inclusion, people, and that means lots of taxation and, first and foremost, changing the American flag. So, let me unveil your new flag.
My God! The president's a goddamn homo-communist! And an alien! Come on, boys. Let's get the hell out of here. Booyah! But
any Republican who refuses to sign Grover Norquist's pledge promising not to ever raise any taxes, ever, will not be nominated. So Mitch Daniels is out because he's far too reasonable to win a Republican nomination. Romney is out because he can't run against Obama on health care after having signed the same health care reform ideas into law as governor of Massachusetts. And, according to the Boston Herald's conservative columnist Howie Carr, quote, Mitt Romney reminds every worker of the boss who fired him. Haley Barbour is a hopeless candidate because former lobbyist, among other things, is the part of his resume he's never going to be able to explain away in Republican primary debates. That leaves former Minnesota Governor Tim Pawlenty, who I've previously identified as the realistic frontrunner for the Republican nomination, simply because he has no obviously prohibitive negatives that will doom his candidacy with Republican primary voters. That also may be true of former Utah governor and departing ambassador to China Jon Huntsman, but it is very unlikely that Republican primary voters will want to reward a former token Republican of the Obama administration with their vote for president. And so the list of plausible Republican candidates still comes down to just one name. You've heard it here before, Tim Pawlenty. And if I keep saying that, it might just tarnish Pawlenty's name just enough that Republican primary voters will turn against him and vote for one of the more prominent losers who will be beaten by Barack Obama.
What we gonna do?
Well, as patriots and Americans, we are left with only one option. We gotta kill the president or set off a terrorist attack and blame it on brown people.
That's pretty heavy.
God damn it, we're heroes, son, not diplomats! The right and proper thing to do is to shoot the democratically elected bastard before he changes anything else in this hellhole. We've done it in plenty of other countries, and it worked out great! Yeah! Fuck democracy!
That is how losers get the Republican nomination.